So I'm sure you guys have all seen the meme that's got the technician that can rebuild the 32 valve V8, but he can't get the cardboard tube off and put on a new roll of toilet paper. Well, this technician can find the time and money to put a big block in a Miata, but he can't seem to do anything about the windshield wipers. Welcome back to the garage, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We are working on the big block Miata. Today we're going to be working on getting this K-member off this Mustang frame and getting it down to manageable pieces that we can fit into the bottom of this Miata chassis. You would think taking some control arms and springs out of a Mustang is not that big a deal. But it turns out when you don't have a proper spring compressor, it can be a little dangerous. So we had to take some necessary safety precautions. But we're good now, and we're going to go back together with a spring compressor. So what I've got to do now is I got to get these bolts out of this K-member. It looks like the rust is going to get the better of me. So I think I'm going to have to get out the blue wrench to get this thing apart. So I've got the SN95 K-member just about stripped to the bare bones. It's got a little bit of rust, but it's nothing too severe. I think a little Krylon, this thing's going to look great. What I'm doing right now is trying to just guesstimate where everything's going to land. I'm a little concerned with the motor mounts. It's hard for me to imagine a 302 motor mount sits, that far in front of the front axle of a Mustang, but that's what it looks like here. If you guys haven't seen my original video, that center of that engine is dead in line with this axle. So with that, I think that means my new motor mounts of the 460 are going to be about right here. So we may have to fab us up some plates and brackets there, but it's all in a day's work. So the next thing I got to do is get this taken down off the chain hoist here, and we're going to get it out of the way. Then I'm going to get the Miata brought a little deeper into the garage in its final position for this frame swap. As I was moving the Miata into the position I wanted, I originally was going to just move this chain hoist out of the way, but then I realized it would be kind of handy to hold the nose of this while I've got the subframe out of the car. So we're going to give it a shot and see if the old rafters will hold up. I think it will. This thing's 800-pound wet. It's hanging on one end. So what do we got? 400 or 500 pounds hanging on the hoist? We'll be just fine. So this is a little bit of a turning point for me too, because up until right now, this car runs and drives. It moves under its own power. And I've got a lot of work and a lot of luck into getting that to happen. So this is kind of the commitment point to getting this 5-lug swap done. But you know what they say, you think long, you think wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to it and get this thing taken apart. So I've learned a lot about Miatas over the past few months building this car. One of my favorite things I've discovered is the Miata suspension. It's a short, long arm with a coil-over shock. It is tried and true, really good suspension for handling. It is great, except when you have this much weight on an axle. Even if I change out the springs to like an adjustable coilover, yeah, maybe I could get the nose back up again. But even the mounting hardware is not sufficient for the amount of weight we have. So that's one of the main reasons we're going over this Mustang stuff. Now, I just took this wire off the starter, or rather touched it and it fell off the starter. Look at how melted this stuff is. I mean, it was trashed. I actually forgot to unhook the cable, and when I hit it, it fell down and started sparking, so we're lucky we didn't burn a car to the ground. Here's the exhaust setup this car has. It starts right up there at the manifold and works its way down to there. That's it. Just about 18 inches of pipe. And it's got the job done to this point, but we got something cooler now. So I'm going to keep the brake calipers attached to the car hanging from the apron here for now. I don't know where I'm going to break it from Mustang to Miata. We'll sort that out later. Right now I want to go to the other side of the car, get the suspension off, and then I'll probably move to getting this rack out of our way. So with the depowered Miata rack out of the way, there was only a few bolts left to get the cradle out. So before we knew it, there she sits. And I cannot tell you how excited I am about this, because this is the first time I've seen our modified Miata cradle next to the SN95 cradle. So it is scary close. In fact, it almost looks like I was modifying this to fit a Mustang. Because if you haven't seen it, we actually cut this whole center section out of this cradle, put this rearward brace and then that forward brace for the rack in to make clearance for the oil pan sump. One of the things that I was very concerned about was my axle placement. If you look where the engine mounts are right now, the axle in the Miata is dead in line. I remember that when I first built it. I mean, you almost couldn't get that in a straighter line. With the Mustang, if I put the axle back in the same position, that means my motor mounts are going to sit just behind the factory location here, and I've got plenty of room to make that happen. Also, if you notice, the Mustang cradle has a large opening where I had to make one on the Miata cradle for that oil pan, so I think that's going to work out, as well as the starter clearance we had to do here. Not going to be an issue with the Mustang. So I'm definitely feeling a lot more confident about being able to do this. The next thing we're going to do is get under the car and try to fit that cradle up roughly to where it's going to go, so we can visualize what we got to do to mount it. So using the floor jack, I picked the K-member up towards the car so I can get an idea where everything's going to land. I have oil pan clearance for days, so that's not going to be an issue. I've got more starter clearance than any Ford engineer ever gave one of us technicians, so that's going to be nice and easy. It looks like the only casualty we're going to have is going to be this exhaust. Now, originally I took the exhaust out over the K-member here in the fender well to exit. But with this wider K-member, I'm actually going to have enough room to go inside the K-member and out and under the floor pan to our side pipe. So it actually might be a little bit cleaner this way. So that's a win too. It's just going to take a little bit of fabricating. Now actually mounting it to the frame rail, looks like I've got maybe one stud that may line up. But before I get too hopeful about that, I got to put some A-arms in here, do some measuring, figure out some steering geometry and go from there. So I think you guys would agree that I've definitely got my work cut out for me this time, but this is all doable stuff. We've made ourselves a list here of everything we got to do. We're going to check them off one by one until we get them all done. And speaking of done, this video's done, guys. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.